Hey guys, in today's episode, I'm talking with a good friend of mine. We're going to talk about my thoughts on jazz, how jazz is in society. We're going to talk about reasons why you might want to study music, why it's beneficial, and what's good about it. Hope you guys enjoy. Peace.
What do you think about jazz?
Jazz? Well, I don't have a lot of thoughts about jazz, but mostly it's upsetting when you meet people who are not into jazz and you can just take one look at them and you know they're not into jazz because they're just not that type of person in any way. They're like, I'm into jazz. And then you ask them, like, what kind of jazz are you into? Like Miles Davis. And they're like, what? That's old. I like Kanye West. That's my favorite jazz artist. And it's just like, this has happened to me multiple times. It's not always Kanye West.
Is that actually happening?
Yeah. People
call Kanye West jazz?
Not him specifically, but it's just like, people will be like, oh, I'm into jazz. And then it's like, oh, like, show me what you're into. And then you listen to it and you're like, this is hip hop.
Yeah.
This is hip hop. You're calling it jazz because you want to make others feel like they're less than you.
Yeah.
And like, this is all this is
you want to make people believe your tastes are more refined than they actually are.
So even though you're listening to music that is like completely normal, nothing wrong with it, right? In your mind, you think there's something wrong with the music you like, and you're projecting that onto others by saying that what you like is jazz when it's almost always hip hop. It's almost always hip hop. The people who say that they're into jazz when they're not into jazz. And I mean, jazz is mostly great music. I don't like it that much. I don't like it for very, very formalistic reasons. So like, what I'll compare jazz to when I think about it is like Baroque and late Renaissance counterpoint. And like okay, so like at the time, like, you've got like medieval Europe, right? And you've got like, one of the duties of a priest is to compose music for his chapel.
Yeah.
And some priests are good at it and some priests are bad at it. And so like, your inclination is like, well, we take the priest who's good at it and have him walk from like Salzburg to Bonn to teach them how to do better music, right? The problem is you have enough priests getting murdered by thieves on the road and you're like, this isn't working, We need a way to write it down and send it with like a young person on a horse.
Yeah.
And then they can just get the piece of paper, And so they have to develop a way of writing it down. And so they go through most of the songs they have and they count how many notes are in each song. Like, how many things do we need to keep track of, right? And it's like almost every song has 7 notes, right? So like, we can use like an example song where like... And there's a total of seven, I know how to talk. There's a total of 7 different notes throughout the song, right? And so you create like a basic grid where you have 5 lines, every good boy does fine, FACE, and you can plot them on here, right? The issue is that the entire system falls apart unless the song begins on either C or A. So you have to adjust it, and you find that 2 of those notes were already pretty close together. There's no room to squeeze a new note in between them. And there's no space in between B and C, and there wasn't any space in between E and F. But all the others, you can squeeze an extra note in between, and then you can make the system much more universal with 12 notes. It's the same thing in Indian classical music. The West was way behind India on this because India already at that time period had the 12 swara. But yeah, you get the Western 12 notes that way. and the music is written for a group of people to sing in church, in a chapel, in a cathedral. And each person sings a different note. And of course, you have multiple people to sing this stuff, right? But if they're all singing the same thing, how does that give glory to God and all the intricacies of God's creation, right? Each person should be singing a unique part. But if the unique parts don't fit together, then it's not appealing. So you have to find a way to make 4 unique parts fit together. And so you measure everything this way and that way and that way, and you look for like your compare and parallel fifth, you look for your contrary motion, you look for your oblique motion, you do all these steps, and you engineer something to be perfectly balanced from beginning to end. Jazz, on the other hand, the whole idea is that it is spontaneous, right? And that you have a great command of harmony. And does it sound bad? I mean, like, no, it depends on the quality of the musician, right? But I think, you look at the all-time greats, Miles Davis, John Coltrane. I mean, those are really 2 of the biggest names, right? And then you just compare them to the people one step below who had achieved all-time great status, right? But like Dave Brubeck, and Dave Brubeck talks very candidly about how he wrote the material, you know? And most jazz just, I mean, by nature, most jazz is not as good as Miles Davis and John Coltrane. So, do I like the all-time greats of jazz? Like, of course. What kind of fool wouldn't like the greatest jazz music ever made? But as a genre as a whole, you really have to have a community there that can build everyone together up enough that they are better. And when that community starts to fall apart, the genre as a whole starts to fall apart because of the improvisational nature of it. So, do I like jazz? No, I don't think I do like jazz. I'm not a jazz fan. You will catch me listening to jazz. I will show it to students. I'll show it to friends. I'll listen to it. But like as a whole, and within the context where I live, being like Texas, like no, it's not really that good. I could go somewhere else in the world where it's a thing, and I might have a whole different answer. But it's not a thing here, and it's not into jazz.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Alright, why was Johann Sebastian Bach so popular?
Because he's awesome. Actually, he wasn't popular. A lot of what happened with Bach is that his music was the Bach family business. And although really J.S. Bach is the one that we most remember, a big part of it is that he sent his sons out to the royalty of different countries in the continent and in the British Isles.
Yeah.
And his children became the court musicians for royalty. And a specific one, whose name I don't remember, it's a different Johann Bach, Johann something else Bach, I want to say it was a tutor to Mozart and babysat Mozart when Mozart was somewhere between 5 and 12 years old.
I have heard that.
Yeah. And and they get remembered a lot through that. A lot of people going back to Bach from the influence of his children. Another thing about Bach, though, why he gets remembered later, is just how perfect his counterpoint was. And I talked about a little bit in the first segment, the way that, like the late Renaissance and early Baroque period, you measure everything going every which way, and you end up with a finite number of correct solutions. But Bach, even at that early period, finds all these clever ways to create more correct solutions than most people would expect possible. He's just the best. What else you got? And I want, when I first started teaching, it just seemed obvious that what everybody wanted was to write music. And I've been consistently surprised by how many people actually want that. At some point, every student, I ask them to write something, and almost none of my students can even do the first step, which is like I'll take 3 chords, like, and I'll just say, put these in a different order. Put these in an order that you haven't already seen it in.
Yeah.
You know? And they can't do that. And that is a very, very straightforward assignment. Take these 3 chords, put them in an order that you personally have not seen it in before. You know? And there's very, very few people who can do that. And you would say, like, well, they're beginners, but then I'll have other people who are also beginners, right? And sometimes even more beginners than the stage at which I give people that question. And I'm just like, hey, how's it going? How was your week? Did you manage to practice? And they're like, yes, I wrote 2 albums. And to the extent that I'm like, and it might be apocryphal to say, and it's not what I thought when I started teaching, but maybe some people just don't waste your time on writing music. It takes all kinds of people to make the world go around, and there's probably something else that's a lot more for you. You know, a good place in the music world for you is somebody who knows how to play, you know, not somebody who's composing music. The people who their place in the world to compose music might be people who are going and just go do it, you know, because it's really hard. You have to be very, very self-motivated to create something like that. That's of quality. It's difficult, and it's definitely not rewarding. So I just don't push people toward. You have to actually just want that. So you know, but to just learn how to play, is really, really neat, because it'll combine an aspect of every hobby. You know, there's athletic parts of guitar, just learning how to do something fast, you know, and the activity of, you know. Oh, it's very sloppy on the end. There's athletic aspects, and if you're just like a super athletic person, then that's a neat thing to have in your back pocket for a rainy day when you can't go outside. You know, if you're not an athletic person, it's cool to have that aspect in your life, and I guess that kind of dichotomy goes forward to the rest of it. I'm mostly phrasing it in terms of, like, if you're somebody who likes this, then it's for you, but with each of them, there's the reverse, like, and if you're not somebody who likes that, you probably benefit from having some aspect in your life of that, you know? If you're an artsy person, there's plenty of artsy stuff in music, you know? But a lot of the other artsy stuff will not have the athletic components. If you're a math person, there's a lot of mathematical components to it, but a lot of the other aspects of your life will have neither the creative nor the athletic components. If you're so used to doing math all the time, music, there's going to be a lot of parts of music that you do very, very well with right on the bat that distinguish you from your peers. But you're going to be really enriched because you're filling in the gaps. So it's almost like if you're building say you're building a wall in a very, very old fashioned of construction, right? They would do brick with mortar to join the bricks, and then they would plaster over it to make a flat wall, right? And music can be very, very much like the plaster that smooths out between the bricks and the mortar to make a flat wall that can be painted on, to paint a sign or something. You know, I'm thinking of these small towns in central Texas where they have walls like this with an ad from 100 years ago still painted on it. And music can take all of your strengths and weaknesses and allow you to lean on your strengths, develop your weaknesses. It just involves every hobby that there is. There's no hobby that you already have that doesn't help you in music, you know? So, and by the same token, you know, there's 6 others that you're slowly getting into all simultaneously. But it's a combination of everything. In a way that a lot of things are not, you know. It's kind of unusual for an artist to really use mathematics that much, you know. It's unusual for an artist. I'm really thinking of like painters, people who do oil and acrylic painting. There aren't that many athletic components to art. There aren't very many mathematical components to art. Art is art. By and large, for the most part, art is art, you know. Pure mathematics is pure mathematics. Sports are sports. Music is all. Music involves every other discipline. Even, you know, literature. You have to write lyrics. You have to interpret lyrics. If you're good at literature, that's a place for you. You know, if you're in science, if science is your thing, then there are so many things. You know, how does the guitar pickup work? You know, well, when you strum the string, it creates a low voltage. That voltage is picked up by the pickup, right? This is an inductance coil. It has a couple thousand passes of wire around a magnet. Well, now I'm getting into the engineering part of it. It's everything. Every skill that you have, you will use in music. Every skill that you don't have, you will develop by doing music. And that's long and short. That's why you should learn music. It makes you a well-rounded person. Because you use everything that you have and you develop everything you don't by doing music. One activity and it does it all.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, boys, jam. All right.